Hi, gang, I am back with another episode, and this is going to be such a good one. I am joined today by the completely lovely Doctor, we must use the Doctor, very important, Kathrine McAleese, who joining me on Zoom. We're going to have a lovely chat. So, Kathrine, how are you today? Are you all good?
I am great. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm really excited. The sun is shining. I feel like this is going to be a good, positive chat. So, before we get into the meat of it, could you introduce yourself and what you do?
Okay, so I my professional background is I trained as a psychotherapist and sociologist. So very, very systemic, looking at you in the whole context of your life and connecting all the dots. And so not just looking at you as if you exist in a bubble. And what that means, really for the last sort of 15 years now, I've helped competitors with their mindset. So that's one business called Mind to Win. Um, and so I geek out on all the brain stuff on that side. And then the consulting side, which is the other side of what I do, is where I mentor largely, generally women in business to go from feeling like, okay, I'm successful, I've done all the things, I've achieved all the things, and yet it still feels, ugh, or I'm exhausted, or it's just like, is this it? And so then when people get to that point, then I come in and go, right, okay, how do we help you build this deliciously satisfying life, whatever that would look like for you, where what's most important to you gets the best of you and not just the dregs of you. And that's yeah, it's really fun. So that's what I spend my time doing. So yeah, and I write books and broadcast and run retreats and all of that jazz. So yeah, I'm busy.
Ah, a busy lady. And I love this so much because, especially when you're in the trenches starting your own business, life gets in the way, military life gets in the way. We know it. Lots of balls to juggle, children, all of the things. But we have this dream of success in the future. We're aiming for something. We make those goals. We have the dream board. We have all the things that we're going to achieve. And then we get there. And for me, I've had some success, which I really love. But I get there and I'm like, well, this is weird. Where's this where are the balloons? Where's this eureka moment? Is this it? Because I'm still knackered. I've still got the husband to sort out. The toddler's still running around causing chaos. And I think it's really interesting the fact that that's what you do. And also recognizing that is really important. So you must work, I'm not going to, I mean, you don't get into details, but you must work with some really like high powered people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I love working with people who are just starting out because then prevention being better than cure. But I also love, when you get people that have been powerfully successful, who have big businesses or big leadership platforms and what have you, and to help them actually be able to stop and enjoy the view, and actually you make it more sustainable as well. That this is something you can continue doing and to restore somebody's joy in what they always wanted, but then they get there and they're like, oh no, this isn't what I wanted. To be able to restore the joy it's really exciting for me to watch that happen and to know it is possible. And I love how individual that is, and that when you help someone get free from all the shoulds, I say, like, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and you just run faster and faster and you're spinning all these plates, and to be able to say, hang on a minute, you see that plate there, that was never yours to spin in the first place, so let's get shot of that one and redirect that to where it belongs, or to say, actually, do you know what, just let that one fall, see what happens, right? Because that's not an important one to you. You've been told you should find that important, right? Because this is the other thing is, we're told you should want this, that, and the other. You should want the ever bigger house. You should want the ever, newer car, the fanciest gear, all the stuff. Your kids should be doing every activity under the sun. All this nonsense that is packed onto you that actually, if you were to stop and listen to yourself and go, what do I want? What actually matters to me? If I don't play that game, what actually do I care about? It gives you a lot more wriggle room and a lot more fun.
And I guess it's all about that idea of success because
Mhm.
I know I'm going on a slightly feminist path here, but as a woman,
Go for it.
we have so many labels and things to do, and it's expected.
Mhm.
And the view that we can have it all, we can have the 5K a month business plans, and we can have the wonderful blonde-haired children with blue eyes that, have all this academic success and play rugby for England. Like all of these things as mothers and women that like you said, society throws on us. But like I don't know if I can have it all. And if I can have it all, do I want it all? Because at the moment, I've probably got like a third of it, and I am a broken, very tired woman. And working out what I want, I think a lot of women have this problem. What do I want? I'm so busy doing all the stuff for other people. How do we
Yeah,
get to that point where we go, before we start, throwing plates around and tables and it all
yeah,
goes bad? How do we even work out what we want to get to this life that it should exist for us?
absolutely. I think one of the things that always strikes me is that we have been conditioned, socially conditioned. We are trained to worry about everybody else, to take care of everybody else, to be the emotional caretaker in the room, right? The emotional caretaker in the home. So you modulate the temperature. So if anybody else is struggling, it's on you to make that okay, right? Which is preposterous and actually really disempowering for men, really unhelpful, but that's a whole other rant. But when you've got that set up, then of course you are being primed to struggle, right? From the get-go, you're being primed to struggle. You're also being trained to exclude yourself from the conversation. So a lot of times when I talk to them, they're like, "Oh, but I would feel selfish." And I'm like, "No, no, no. I'm not asking you to think about yourself as the only person under consideration. I'm simply asking you to include yourself in the conversation. That actually know you have needs and there's some validity there. You are part of this partnership too. You are part of this family too. You're not just the one holding the camera, taking pictures of everybody else having a good time that you have, planned for, packed for, made
Yeah.
all the appropriate planning for and carried the mental load for. You actually are part of this family as well. You are part of this world as well. And you having needs is not selfish. You understanding and speaking up for those needs is not selfish. It's actually showing up to the party that is your life.
And also just being, like you said, being part of it is so important. I know that it feels really easy, I say easy in this military world where it's kind of a bit of a weird one, isn't it? We're kind of fitting into this weird 1950s housewife type thing, balanced against, generations of military people that have done it before, and that the house feels like it's old school and the base feels like it's old school, and there's a place where we should fit as a
Mm.
military spouse, as a mostly military wife. Feel like you have to fit and play a role, and the uncertainty of military life does not help that at all. I mean, it's sad. You wrote the most amazing thing. Actually, I think you said it out loud. You weren't here to make up the numbers, which I love. I don't know where that's come from, but I'm going to tattoo it across my head because I think it's brilliant. Um, we deserve to show the world how epic we are. How do we go about that? Because the Magnolia, the military life, it's all adding to these layers of here's who you are and this is the place you should be. How do we get past that?
Ooh, I mean that's a huge one. And actually, I'm not trying to dodge answering it because I will give you an answer in a second, but I think what's important for folks is that it's going to be different for different people in different scenarios. And I do want to fully uh own my privilege that whilst on the one hand, the disadvantage for me in military life and having the support and the sort of community is not having biological children, having stepchildren who didn't live with us. So I never had access to that piece of the military world that, it just I was naturally excluded from. Not by anybody's efforts, by the way, just, circumstances. Um, but at the same time, I do have the privilege of going, actually, I have freedom to make different decisions simply because I don't have kids at home to have to think about, right? So I want to own that privilege before I go any further. Um, well, let's call it privilege. I'm not sure I want to use that word, but hey, let's use it in that power dynamic way. I think for each person it's going to be different, but finding something that is yours, that is independent, that isn't owned by the military, that is a whether it's a business or a hobby or a whatever it is that is yours, that gives you a sense of place, a reminder of your skills, what you bring to the party, independent of your beloved's job, is really quite important, because otherwise it can be all consuming that you are this stereotypical military wife, whatever the devil that is, these days, right? And it doesn't honor, actually, firstly, as you alluded to, the world has moved on, the needs of families have moved on, but also we as women are so blooming capable, which we always were, but now it's just not as socially acceptable to go, you just fester in a corner somewhere until Lovey gets home and have his dinner ready. Like, that's just not, that doesn't, and it doesn't make good use of the skills that half of the people on your bases have, the ones out of out of uniform. So I could go on a rant on that one, but for me, you need to have something that is yours, whatever that looks like.
Completely. It's I was talking to a load of female veterans the other
Mm.
day about the transition from the military and how you lose your identity. And I was saying how for military partners, something similar, not the same by any stretch, but something similar happens when you find your person, you fall in love with them, and then no matter if you're weekending or if you choose to move around in the Magnolia, you lose a little bit of that, and it's taken me years to claw that back, which is why I really wanted to talk to you today. Half of it was to learn from you. The other half is just to have a little therapy session, but it's okay. Nobody wants to know. Nobody will know. Because I'm still working on it. It's a really hard, because I fell into the stereotype where I thought, we stay at home, we make some cakes, we go to the coffee mornings. That's what we
Yeah,
do. But it's that little piece that's missing, that was why I was so excited when I started researching you, because your idea is to make your life as great as it can be, um,
absolutely.
no matter how you believe that can be. But I think the question is, how have you ever got lost? Is that how you found yourself doing this? Because it seems like such a great thing to want to do, just to help people get either back to where they had that spark, or if they've lost themselves a little bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur and self-employed since I came out of theater school a million years ago, and I would have been just turned 19. So I went self-employed immediately, and there's a million different things along the way. But so I've been through that cycle and finding my identity in jobs and stuff, which I don't recommend either. There's we're finding your identity in your relationship. There's all these places that we can find our identity, that if they go, who are we? So, and you find those transitional points at different stages, I think, in life anyway. So for me, it's like, yeah, I've had a few of these along the way. For me, and for those of your listeners who don't haven't come across my story before, I started this business, the Mind to Win side of it, 15 years ago. So I started that um roughly 4 or 5 months before I met my husband. It really, yeah, something like that. Um, and so early days, I was thinking, oh, well, this is a local thing. And, this is back in the days before, if you wanted your own website, you had to do the hosting, connect it to the domain yourself. You had to do the whole thing, right? And so my first, I was doing stuff in real life because I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that online thing. That's steady. That requires tech, and that's not me. And I'm proving that this thing worked, and then Ben came along, and it's like, well, he's a bit of all right. I think he might be a keeper. He's a good one. Um, and so I started thinking about, right, well, what would that look like if because if he got an exotic placement somewhere, I want to be going with him. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be sitting like in a cold winter when he's basking in the sun somewhere. Like that's not okay. So then I started looking at online, and would you believe my first online haha course was delivered via email. This is before even Facebook groups were a thing. Like that's how long ago we're talking, you know. But it was the start into, okay, what would it look like to have a business that could move anywhere? What would it look like to have something that would not be subject to the whims of the army? And this is before, I obviously had any clue that they would actually work out. But it was like, no, if I'm serious about this person, and if I want, to make this as joyous as it could be, then I know I need to have something for me. And I know that trailing around after somebody else without actually having goals for me, without having a purpose for me, that's not, you're not going to see the best of me. I absolutely respect the people who can be domestic goddesses. I am not that. And in my defense, I did warn him of that early on. It's like, yeah, this is just so we're clear. So that, I think it's really important that if you can think about, right, how are you going to have something that know yourself. If you're the sort of person who has drive and who has, wants to get stuck into the world and wants to make the world a better place and wants to use your skills and gifts, okay, how can you do that? What would that look like for you to thrive at the same time as your beloved, to support the heck out of them? Absolutely. Like there's no, I'm Ben's biggest cheerleader and, passionately support him. Even if the postings haven't turned out to be as exotic as I was hoping for. But yeah, set it up so you can thrive too. Why not?
I love that so much. We also have never made it to Hawaii. I feel like I need to
I mean, it's rude. It's
send
just
out
rude.
into. I know. How dare they? No, unfortunately not. But equally, I did that in the olden days when everything was. It feels like business nowadays is easier for the stuff. So you put on all the different hats. You be the social media manager, the email marketing manager. All these things.
Yeah.
Life is easier. But equally, back in the day, it was build your own website, go some networking, job's done. It was
Uh,
hard. And doing that, all of that, I mean, coding, could you imagine doing an email pop-up on a WordPress website? I don't need that skill anymore. Do you know what I mean? Why do I have that? And all of that pain, which now you can do within seconds. But now
yeah.
there's like 7 million things to do.
Yeah.
But I love it. If you were starting a business now, what would you have done, knowing all you know about military life, army life, the postings that weren't Hawaii? What what would you do differently?
I'm not sure I would do terribly much differently. I'd probably go online sooner. But to be honest, I was really, really, really lucky that the business went global, like straight off the bat, really. I mean, it very quickly got traction. I had a couple of people that, sort of shouted my name about when they were going and doing seminars all over the place. So I got into rooms that I wasn't in, and my name got into rooms. So, that comes back to old-fashioned networking. That's, from the get-go, the people that I knew, spoke about me until other people got to know me and speak about, or speak to me directly. And so old-fashioned networking, you cannot get past it. But honestly, I'm really proud of it. I probably would have brought my sister on earlier because I hummed and had about, I needed an assistant, I wanted an assistant, a PA, I should say. Yeah, well, that is. And I hummed and had about it. I was like, oh, is this the right thing or is it not? And it has been an absolute godsend. So my sister works alongside me in my business, part-time. She is very extroverted. It would drive her crazy to sit in front of a computer, so we don't do that. She is part-time and amazing at it. And that's been over a decade. And we have really, really clear boundaries around how we do that, whether we're talking to each other as sisters or as colleagues. And it is like, that's probably the biggest thing that if I'd have done that sooner, it would have, because you feel lonely sometimes when you're doing, when you're on your own, don't you? And so just having that extra person, in it with me is has been an absolute godsend.
Yeah, the extra brain. Even if it's just, I don't think me and my sister could work together. I'm not kidding. I love her terribly, but we would, yeah, we've still got that sister angst thing. But yeah, having that extra brain and to bounce ideas off, and it's that tricky growth stage where you start to outsource. You're like, oh, I'm not ready. Do you have? Is it just the two of you? Is there a bigger team?
No, no, it's just the two of us now. I have previously had different people that do. I've done social media and all the rest of it, but actually, no, I like having it just Jenny and I and keeping things as streamlined and simple. And I am going through. I'm playing at the minute with how I'm, growing the business because I've been doing this for so long. It's like, okay, how am I taking it to the next phase? What is that going to look like? And so I'm at peace. I'm in a transitional stage in it. I know it's not what everybody tells you to do. I don't care. You know, I've been here doing this for 15 odd years. I want to continue having fun with it. I'm not going to have fun if I'm trying to do things the way everybody else says that I should do them when I know it's not how I'm wired or how I want to show up authentically as me. So,
And this kind of like the core stuff, like the core beliefs and the work that you've done with mindset, I guess you're applying that to your own business in the same way that you do with your clients.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if I'm not modeling behavior, what am I doing? Because behaviors are caught, not taught. It's like with kids, you can say what you like, but they are catching what you do. They're catching your attitudes, they're catching your behaviors, some of which you want them to, and others are like, "Ah," you know, you know. So there's that pace of like, no, and I've always said to my clients, I will never ask you to work harder on yourself than I'm prepared to work on myself. So that for me is the major thing of like, right, where am I pushing myself? Where am I going deep on the work of being the person that I need to be so that I'm never holding my clients back, right? So, I was like, no, I've got to lead from the front here. I've got to show them what it looks like to live freer. I've got to show them what it looks like to have this deliciously satisfying life, and it's not all, roses and happy every day, not at all, but it is deliciously satisfying,
I
so
want that. I need this deliciously satisfying life. Currently, I'm doing all the juggling all the balls and the plates, and the balls are bouncing off the plates, and it's absolute chaos. Which is my very much my own doing. We know this. So this deliciously satisfying life. How I don't I would love that. That's what I want. My brain doesn't compute how I'm doing all the things and having a deliciously satisfying life. There's a lot of talk about burnout. Burnout, it seems to be the new thing. And I think the awareness of it is really important. But can we have it all? Can we have this amazing life and balance it in some sort of way that we don't get to the point where we are crying in a corner and wondering what we're doing?
I think it's less about, well, I I don't like the phrase having it all because I think that can be so expansive and insatiable that it becomes this movable goalpost that when you get to a point, then you just do what society tells you to do and go for the next thing and the next thing. And so you never actually reach the satisfaction of going, oh, that's nice, that's enough. I'll stop there because, I'm not too stuffed, right? I'm not too overworked, I'm not too tired, or do you see what I mean? So finding the satisfying, like it's so countercultural to even think in terms of enough. If you were to go into the average business group and go, I don't want to earn anymore, I'm earning enough, they would be on you like a clag. They'd be on you going, oh my goodness, that's a mindset issue. I can help you with that. Here's a course, and no, you should be pushing for your next, if you got your 5K months, and it should be 10K months, and it should be, 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, and so on. So like it's we have this insatiable, voracious society right now, and it is so unhealthy. And until we go, well, hang on a minute, what would it look like to have enough, right? To go, okay, that's enough social media. I don't need another platform. It's not, to go actually, do I need to be across 5 different platforms? Which of them are actually bringing anything in?
Mhm.
Which do I enjoy? You know, do I need to be at every local networking meeting known to man? Probably not. Probably not. I know that's sacrilegious to say, but here we are, right? Do I need to do everything perfectly? Do I need to do it fresh? Do I need to make that meal fresh every night? Or could I batch the heck out of something? Do I need those notifications? And this is like, oh, let me give you a quick win. Turn off the notifications, right? Turn them off. You don't need them. They're training you to be distracted. They're training you to be unproductive. Same with if you've got 20 million tabs open, and I know some people are going to feel really attacked right now. I used to be the queen. I used to take such pride in having like 50 tabs open and, whipping between them and da da da, and I'm so efficient. No, you're not. Stop that. Your brain is having to switch. And the switching cost, even though the switching cost is lower for women generally, so they say there's still a switching cost, which means a loss of focus every time your brain has to make a decision. So even looking along those tabs and picking the right one, you've asked your brain to make a decision that is taking energy from your body, right? Everything. Now that's before you even look at the tab that you've now opened and start into the task that you've now switched to. Or pick up the information you need from that tab to then go back to the initial, Whoa. So if you want one, like one sim, and it doesn't sound like it would be a big thing, but I promise you it is because it's just saving you energy, is a one tab challenge, right? That you literally have one page on your internet open. One. Double dog dare you with bells on.
I
And
love
when I first came across this tab, I was like, you are insane. I am not doing that. That is preposterous. What is wrong with you? And then I started doing it and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I realized that actually once I got into the way of going, no, 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 you have one tab open, you do what you need to do in that one tab, and then you close it. Right. It's not always possible, but most of the time it is. If you're doing one task and you focus on that one task, you get that done quicker with less, with no switching costs because you're not going back and forth to other things. You close that down and then move on to the next thing. You're more productive. And actually, I find then when I would have multiple tabs open that it was like, oh my gosh, this is stressing me out. I hadn't noticed before because it was normal. But now I'm noticing actually, no, that stresses me because it is distracting. And then I've got to go, oh, hang on, where was I? And come back to that task. And then, oh, that comes up. Oh no, where was I? And go back. So I know it seems like a small thing, but I'm gonna let me gift you that as a challenge. If you're a multi-tabber, to just start bringing down the chaos, start bringing down the level of things that your brain is having to keep on top of at any one time.
I love this. I mostly love this because it is achievable.
Yeah,
It's not, I would talk about goal setting a lot with the workshops I do.
yeah.
And it's kind of, everybody wants to create the most amazing website or do a 15 episode podcast series, but it's not. It's the first step. Just take that little first step. And it's not about adding to your plate. It's about editing what you're already doing and removing some stuff, which I think is perfect. Because I'm terrible. I have this like, January, I'm gonna go and run a 5K and I'm gonna eat nothing and all these things that society tells me that I need to do in January. And then it's like, oh, I can't do this. But these little tiny additions, one at a time, not all of them,
Yep,
one at a time.
absolutely.
I love that. And it's great me saying this, but putting it into practice, no, that's another thing. So I guess my question is, what do you do if you're seeing that military spouse, life is chaos. It's so overwhelming. There's so much to do. I am probably that person. Like, and the thought of doing anything is so overwhelming. What's that first step that you would recommend somebody taking when they're just lost in the wilderness of absolute chaos?
Okay. So there's a couple of things. One is pour it all out in paper so you can see it in black and white. What is everything that is overwhelming you right now? And I know that sounds counterintuitive because you're like, oh, if I see it in black and white, it's real. but it's now out of your head and it is on paper. So you're not trying to hold it all in your head anymore. There is a written record and it is paper, not typing, because your brain processes differently when you write something pen and paper as opposed to typing something. So write it down, get it out where you can see it. And you may see that actually there's a few things that sit nicely together that make sense to sort of, group into, okay, this goes with that, goes with that, goes with that. You can also see where your brain is going, and it doesn't need to. But you can also say that there's maybe some things that's like, actually, that's not a given. That's the military's threatening it, but it doesn't mean it's actually going to happen because let's be honest, they do say more than their prayers. Just because they say something's going to happen does not mean it actually will, right? So we've got to deal with what is actually on our plate, not the hypotheticals that may or may not. So let's start with that. Yes, you can then start thinking about, okay, well, if this happens, then what? But what is actually essential? There's just some times where you don't need to think about what's everything I can do, and instead go, what's the least that I can do? Right. And in my world, we talk about the minimum viable action. So when things start getting overwhelming, in my world, we go, right, what's the smallest thing that you can do to make progress? And the benchmark for it is it has to be so small and so seemingly insignificant that it's harder to not do it than to just get it done. Right. That's how small we want. Like, so it's so idiotic, like, I could do that in like 30 seconds. Right. It's that pace. Because once you start doing that, you paradoxically build some momentum. It's why we can sit on TikTok for hours, but when we look at maybe a 30-minute training on something like, oh, I don't have time for that. Right. And I tested this with a program I ran a while back. And I challenged myself to do the lessons at 2 minutes long. Right. That sounds ridiculous, isn't it? But what happened was that, firstly, it meant that I broke things down into, it's not even a bite-sized chunk. It's, barely a sip. Yeah. Like, but people would go, oh, well, I can get through that one. Oh, that was quick. Yeah, I've still got time. I'll do more. And so, you find that people actually end up consuming more because they're not going, oh my gosh, I've got to find an hour, an hour and a half for that training. Oh, I don't have that kind of time. But 2 minutes, yeah, I could do that. 30 seconds, yeah, I could totally do that. So find the smallest thing that you can do. Make it even smaller than you think. Make it so ridiculously eye-rollingly insignificant that it's harder to not do it than it is to do it. And start there once you've had things on paper.
I love this because you can so easily talk yourself out of stuff. It's too
Yep.
much. Yeah, it's too big. I can't do that. Who am I to do that? And also the self-worth and the value, which segues me nicely into your book. We need to talk about your book, which honestly, I'm such a convert. I've been reading about you and I am now a huge fan. The concept of your book. In fact, you know what? You do it. Tell us about your book and what it's all about.
So enough. So it's enough with a full stop, right? Enough. So it's kind of like enough, like we're all good, you know, own that piece. But it's also like enough. Enough already. Full stop. We're done. And the idea about it was understanding your worth and knowing your God designed purpose and really allowing people to sit with the idea of who have you been in the past? Who are you being in this iteration of you? Because there's multiple iterations of you over time. And when you connect the dots and look at your strengths, not all the things that you wish were different or the things that you wish, you had skills in. No, no, look at what you've already got in your hands. Who are you? Who have you been? And what does that tell you about who you can be in future? And so it's really a celebration of you. And it should feel like a big, well, I think it feels like a big, warm hug of a book, but it's not soft and fluffy at the same time. It is an interactive book. So there's loads of questions because part of what it came out of was at the time that I wrote it, I'm like, gosh, not everybody can work with me. And so, I want to help more people. And how do I make that as accessible as possible? So I wrote this book that I want to feel like a conversation. that you can have you'll get these questions from me for you to percolate on, because you know yourself in a way that I'll never know you. We could sit and work together for a decade, and there's things that you will never tell me. Hell will freeze over before you would tell me those things, but you know them. The stories that are there in the background, or the things that you're really proud of, but oh, you wouldn't want to say that. Like all those little pointers, all those little, divine neon lights of like this is who you are, like this is who you were created to be. Own it, be her, show up. So yeah, it's a fun book, and there's an entire chapter dedicated to shoes. It's a parable, but I wanted to explain the parable in a way that made sense to me, never mind anybody else. So I went with shoes because, I love shoes. So, and yeah, it works.
I love it, and
So
it's probably
read it for the shoes.
I'm gonna read it for the shoes. It probably quite a personal experience as well. Really dive into it, but I'm all for it. I love it because I live the grumpy sort of housewife making the cakes, feeling sorry for myself, living for the military, which is not turns out that's not who I am, and it bursts out, and you probably could choose how that's going to burst out. You can burst out in the angry shouting way, which is what I did, or if I'd known, I would just do this more positive kind of what I'm doing now, talking to you, sharing what you're up to. I love it. You must know the quote from Marianne Williamson.
Fabulous quote.
Right, but it's a long one, so I'm going to read a bit of it. Um, so yes, the quote from Marianne Williamson, which is just this is so I read this when it's all a bit much, when
Okay.
the imposter syndrome and the sort of internal noise is, and it's that our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure, which I love. Um, and then it goes on. It's quite a long quote. I will read it at the end, but that we basically we owe the world our light. We owe the world the fact that we even exist at all, and the fact that we are here is such a fluke. If you think about it, we could have been born anywhere in the world and all the, stuff that comes with that. But equally, the
Mm.
fact that we're on this little hovering ball in the middle of nowhere, in the universe, and it's a complete fluke. But the bit I love most is that when we let ourselves have that light that shines, it gives other people permission to do the same,
Yeah.
which I think, especially in this military community, is really important because it can go two ways. So I love the fact that I got to talk to you, and I'm very excited about your book. What are your is that why you're doing it? Are you just unapologetically living your best life? Is
I'm
it
working on it.
good?
I mean, I would say it's still in progress, to be fair. But yeah. I mean, I genuinely believe we weren't put here to make up the numbers. I do believe we're miracles. I mean, I'm a woman of faith. I tend to work with people who don't share my faith, which is the hugest privilege ever. Um, but I'm unapologetic about my faith, and playing with that with folks and going, look, what if there is a God who loves the stink out of you? Like, what difference would that make? If you were so richly adored, if you were dreamt up in love and purposed, and this God went, oh, do you know what? Oh man, Jess would love this. Like this would light her up to have this skill. And she's gonna get such a buzz out of doing that. Like if that were true, what difference would it make to you? Like, how would you walk out in the world differently? And I want to play with that. Like, if people want to treat it as an academic exercise, like that's cool. You rock on, do whatever. But for me, that informs, my faith does inform who I am and how I show up in the world. And I do believe that I have something to offer to help people live better. And I do passionately believe, and I mean, back when to sort of segue a little bit, when I trained in marriage and family therapy back, and I was in the States when I did that master's, I one of the papers, and this is long before I met Ben, I had no desire to be part of a military family, I'm an ad. Like that wasn't on my list of to-dos. But I was fascinated by the dynamic in military families. So one of the papers I did was research. It was looking into military families and their outcomes and the deployment cycle, and that was in the US and what have you. But one of the things that struck me was in the research at the time, what it was saying is that if you take care of the military families, the soldiers do better. Right. And at the time, now I don't know what the research says now, obviously it's a long time since, but back then they were saying that actually the rates of PTSD and combat stress reactions, as they were called then, um, could be lowered. They could expect them to be lower if the families were doing better. Now, I don't even know if the research says that now, but I remember being struck at the time going, it makes sense to me that if the family back home is supported and doing well and thriving, that takes one hell of a stressor off the serving personnel, especially in the at that stage 15-month potentially deployments that the US service personnel were doing, and the sort of shortness of their cycles uh, from one deployment to the next. So for me, it made sense, and that's always stuck with me of like, look, if the family is thriving, then it makes sense that soldiers would have one less thing to worry about. And that's got to be a good thing. It also helps with retention, which has got to be a good thing. Right. So for me, it's a no-brainer that, and it's why I love what you do, because by helping military wives, military spouses thrive and succeed in the military in the Magnolia box, then you're helping the whole system. You're helping those women, but you're also helping their serving personnel, other halves, right? You're helping the children thrive because when one person suffers, everybody suffers. So it's just, to me, has always been common sense. If you take care of everyone in that family system, everyone in the dynamic, and you help them to thrive, it's gonna lead to better outcomes. So for me, that has always informed, on this side of things, what I believe in, and why I care so much about speaking up for this stuff.
And we all deserve to have the best life, really. I love
Yeah.
it. We've already said it. We've said it twice already, but you weren't put here to make up the numbers. I'm honestly gonna live by that because why wouldn't you? We have the same amount of time, and I mean, different challenges, different resources, but let's just make it go at it and make it good fun. Life is literally too short, as they say. Dr. Kathrine. Oh, it's very official. Honestly loved talking to you. I've learned so much and we're on the same wavelength. I've still got a few little bits to fix and, less spinning of plates would help. If we are looking to connect with you or find you, or buy your amazing book, Enough with a Full Stop, where can we find you?
So you can find me at drkathrine.com, and apologies, Kathrine is a dreadful name to spell at the best of times, but so DRKATHRINE, so there is no E in the middle. Drkathrine.com, you can find out all the stuff about how to work with me, how to get the book, all the rest of it. I'm also on socials, as you would expect, at Dr. Kathrine. And I would love to connect.
Honestly, I've loved it. It's been great. Before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I'm just rooting for y'all.
I
Do
love
it.
it. Yes, go out there and do it, and live your best life. Dr. Kathrine, thank you so much for coming and being a guest on the podcast.